Andre, is the used car market crashing?
Yes, and it's great news if you're searching for a more affordable used car.
And potentially really bad news if you bought a used car just after COVID and now want to sell it. So let's talk about this new study brought to our friends at IC Cars. So they analyzed over 17.9 million 1 to 5 year old used cars sold between January and August of 2019, 2023, and 2024. And let's talk about some of the big pictures. According to Carl Brower, executive analyst, after years of increasing used car prices, we've finally seen prices drop in the past year. He goes on to say, while $20,000 would buy approximately half of the 1 to 5 year old car market in 2019, that number was down to just 12.7% in 2023, and now it's on the rise again.
Like I said, great news if you're searching for a used vehicle right now.
Yeah, so they actually went ahead and analyzed a bunch of cars. We have 24 vehicles that we're going to discuss today. And here is the basic headline, right? From 2019 through 2023, used cars shot up in value.
Yeah, and this was COVID years, right? I think people couldn't, congregate together, and they wanted the vehicle maybe to get away.
And more importantly, Andre, it was also chip shortage years.
Yes.
Do you remember that fire that took down the microchips?
Everything was down.
People couldn't get new cars, so what they did is they went out and bought used cars, just skyrocketing the used car market. And we're going to see that 2019 to 2023% changes in some cases were upwards of 40%. And in just 1 year, from 2023 to 2024, just about the whole market has seen a pretty big crash. So let's talk about some specific vehicles, Andre. So the Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Yeah, so the Jeep Grand Cherokee, over the COVID years, right, it came up in value or in price by 24.5%. Average price was in 2023 about $34,107. But recently it went down by 9.2%.
Yeah.
So this is great news. Grand Cherokee is really, they've built millions of them over the recent years. Really popular, really useful. 5 seats. They also have the L version, right, which is an extended length version. So this is really good news.
It's good news if you want to buy a used one now, right?
Yes.
It's bad news if you bought a used one last year and then need to resell it. And keep in mind, we're talking about used vehicles 1 to 5 years old. Now, the Ram 1500, Andre, saw a shocking percentage increase during those 4 years. We're talking about used Ram 1500s, Andre. What was that percentage?
It went up 56.4%. I cannot believe this.
Yeah.
And now, of course, Ram is seeing the repercussions of this, right? And the used values of Rams are going down.
So the average used price of a Ram 1500 before COVID was $27,000. The average used price of a Ram during COVID was $42,000. That's an increase of 15 grand just during the COVID years, and now it's down to about 39,000. So it's come down about 8%.
Yeah, so it's coming back down almost to Earth, maybe not quite Earth yet, but it's coming down.
Now, the Ford Explorer also saw pretty big increases of 31%. And what is the percentage decrease in 2023 to 2024?
Negative 7.4%.
Yep.
Like you said, so 2019 prices, averages were about 26,000. And now, most recently in 2024, we're looking at 32,000 for a used Explorer.
Yeah, and we see about a 7.4% drop in the Equinox. Now, the Corolla is an interesting one because the Corolla really exploded in value. So it went from a $14,000 used car in 2019 up to a $21,000 used car. That's a 49% increase because very popular car.
Yeah.
Right?
Efficient.
People couldn't get them.
Yes.
They were in high demand. And now that car has finally dropped below the $20,000 threshold mark in the used market, which is good.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the threshold for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
When you see that first 2 or more,
right,
like $20,000 or $30,000 price tag for a used vehicle, that turns a lot of people off. But as soon as you see a $19,000, like for this Toyota Corolla data most recently, I think it should, brings a lot more people into that.
Interestingly enough, they did look at that $20,000 standpoint, and IC Cars found that the market share of 1 to 5 year old used cars priced under $20,000 has increased 30% since last year.
Sweet.
So during like the 2022, 2023 era, finding a 1 to 5 year old car under 20K was practically impossible,
Yeah.
right? They were just so inflated. But now we actually see three really popular cars, the Elantra, the Malibu, and the Corolla, all can be had for typically under $20,000 slightly used, which is huge.
Yeah, this is great news.
Yeah.
And Corolla is a great car. And they have various versions of that car, obviously.
Now let's talk about some other highlights on this list. The full list will be published at TFL Car if you want to check it out. The Chevy Malibu was another one that went from a $16,000 used car to a $20,000 used car, and then is now back under 20. That's seen a fall of 5.9%.
Yep.
Andre, speaking of trucks, by the way, this is a pretty big number. Silverado, what happened to Silverados?
So the Silverado went up 35.9% during COVID years, and now it's down negative 4.1%. And the average price of a new Silverado right now is, used one, is $38,606, which is a little bit less than what the Ram is.
Yeah.
So at least the Chevy trucks, full-size trucks, Silverado 1500s we're mainly talking about here, are now under 39,000.
Interestingly, though, Andre, its sister vehicle, the GMC Sierra, has only seen a fall of about 2.7%.
Whoa. And recently we also did a brand new study on volumes and popularity of full-size trucks. And this GMC brand was doing better than Chevy.
Yeah.
So there's something going on here. GMC is more expensive, but it's more desirable in a lot of people's views.
So the 24 cars we're looking at, according to IC Cars, is the best-selling used cars, right? And number 24 is a really interesting one before we talk about number one. Number 24 is actually the Jeep Wrangler. So the average price of a used Jeep Wrangler in 2019 was $25,980. The average price of a Jeep Wrangler in 2024 is $38,569.
Whoa.
So what we're seeing is actually a consistent increase over the years of Jeep Wrangler prices.
So not even coming down at all. Increasing, continuous to increase even in 2024.
So that percentage change in 2023 to 2024 is actually up. It's the only car on this list that's gone up in value on the used market. Now, the reason I have a theory about that.
Yeah.
The reason I think that we're seeing that number go up is because in this time period, the Jeep Wrangler has gotten so much more expensive from a new MSRP standpoint that that's kind of artificially dragging up the used prices.
But do you think it's like the chicken and the egg?
Well,
do you think Jeep is looking at the used values and they're like, oh, the used Jeeps are coming up, so let's bring the new Jeeps up, and then that in turn brings the used Jeeps up as well.
Or maybe they're like, we can get more profit margin out of this if we increase the MSRP, and then it makes it harder for an individual to go out and buy a new Jeep, which then makes more folks move to the used market. Supply and demand, right? We got more demand in the used market. Maybe that's jacking up the prices a little bit.
One more comment about the Jeep Wrangler.
Yeah, what you got?
Here, it's one of the very few vehicles that's still convertible, right? So there's not a lot of brand new vehicles that are actually, top-down vehicles. Of course, the Ford Bronco is another one. And I was talking to a good friend at the volleyball tournament recently, and she said the Jeep Wrangler was her dream car. So it's like aspirational,
right?
And people just love the image of that open top, doors removed type of motoring. And I think that still brings up the values of those vehicles really, really high.
Now, there's of course some other factors that go into play. Like we could probably, if we wanted to go more in depth to this, we should look at like inflation, right? How has that impacted used car prices? I think that'd be an interesting follow-up video.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing is the average of all 1 to 5 year old used cars has come down 4.7%. in 2023 to 2024. The Tesla Model 3, however, has come down 22.6% between 2023 and 2024.
And it already went down during COVID also.
Yeah.
So the Model 3, Tesla Model 3 is probably the best, or, the values are just crashing and crashing and crashing.
Now, part of that is it launched in 2018, right?
Yeah.
And it was a hot ticket item. So the 2019 average used car price was $48,997.
Oof.
But you could get them, right? They were super, super hard to get. Fast forward to 2023, that price came down to $37,500. Fast forward to 2024, a used Tesla now is $29,000 average price in 2024. So the Model 3 is really starting to tank in value.
And there's also the new version that's out as well.
Which is not helping things, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? TFL felt this pain ourselves.
Yes.
We bought a Model 3 Performance, and then we sold it a year later,
100%.
and we lost a chunk of money.
I think we paid like 53,000 brand new for that Model 3.
For the performance one.
I think we struggled to sell it for 37.
Yeah, so we
38,
lost like almost $15,000.
$15,000.
Yes.
Really, really bad
So
financial
we felt
decision.
that pain ourselves.
Yeah.
And the Model 3 continues to do this.
So very interesting results. So Andre, personal takeaway, what are you thinking about this? Are you happy that used cars are getting more affordable?
Well, I'm actually thinking about selling my Chevy Colorado soon. So maybe I shouldn't be too excited by this because I don't know if I can sell my Colorado for a good value. But in general speaking, I always try to look for the future. So I'm kind of hopeful because people who are maybe weren't able to buy a vehicle recently, now they should be able to buy one used because the prices are coming down. And there's also more negotiating power. Right. So they can actually, you can actually negotiate. And a lot of popular vehicles like the Toyota Highlander, for example, that we haven't mentioned yet, also went down recently 5.4% in price.
Tacomas are down too,
ones.
yeah.
Camrys are down 4.6. So a lot of very, very popular vehicles and very fuel-efficient vehicles, including some Mazdas and Honda CR-V, for example, negative 6.6%, a Honda Accord as well. So I think this is good news in my view.
My concern is I think there's going to be a lot of Americans out there, especially who are paying over sticker on new cars, that are going to be tremendously underwater.
Well, especially, underwater, that's a bad one.
Tremendously
because
underwater.
they probably finance those vehicles, right?
100%, 100%.
And, ouch.
I read a study about that recently, that there's a huge number of folks that are underwater.
So that means they may hold on to their vehicles and not sell them.
Or they might panic sell them, in which case he will have a glut of everything. So I think this is good news if you want to buy used. It's potentially very alarming if you're going to try to sell used, and could be a disaster if
you're underwater.
If you're underwater.
Yeah. So let us know in the comments below. Which camp are you in? Are you looking to buy a used vehicle? Are you trying to sell one? Are you underwater? Let us know.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Head over to alltfl.com for more new car and used car reviews, and we'll keep you in touch with the IC car studies about what's going on in the car market.
Thank you.